There's a boom and bust cycle and good reason to fear it. Blame low interest rates. It's the animal spirit.
And welcome back to 770 Afternoons. I'm Danielle Smith on NewsTalk770. You will recall that I played that last week, the fight of the century between John Maynard Keynes and Friedrich Hayek about how much do we intervene in the economy? How much government spending should there be? How much can government spending actually steer the economy in the direction we want to go and get positive results? Well, my next guest shares my skepticism about government intervention, shares my skepticism about government spending and the impact that it can have. And he joins me now in studio. Tim Moen is the party leader for the Libertarian Party of Canada. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having us on. I really appreciate it. That rap is fantastic. I love it. You know, we're living in times where all the other parties seem to be promoting John Maynard Keynes' policies of interfering with the economy, and we've seen the repercussions of that. So I appreciate you putting that on.
Well, let me ask you this, because this was one of the frustrations that I had in being in your business, in the political business. And this is a very challenging issue for anyone who wants to see less government, smaller government when they're running for political office. When you're running in a campaign, the public is geared towards looking at what are you going to give me? What kind of spending programs are you going to have? At the federal level especially, you end up with politicians who propose grand national visions or national programs. What is your basic message that you're hoping to get across during this campaign?
Free dental care and ponies for everyone.
That does not sound like libertarian policy.
No. The opposite of that. The opposite. No, of course, my primary reason for getting involved in politics, I still kind of shirk that title, politician. I quit my job recently as a firefighter to do this, and it's not because I think I'm going to win a seat or because I think that if I get into the halls of Parliament, I can pull some legislative levers and create more freedom. I see the fundamental problem with our country being this culture of government interventionism. It comes, people want free stuff. They want the government to intervene, and the mainstream parties know that. They know that if they want to get elected, they have to do it on a message of government interventionism. And so my primary role with the Libertarian Party is to put liberty on the map in Canada and to say things that are probably going to be unpopular, but things that need to be said and need to be put into the public discourse. So to me, what's required is a cultural shift. And unless we see that cultural shift, we'll never see the government we want.
In some ways, libertarian policy has won. I would say mostly on social issues or moral issues. We're pro-choice as a country, and nobody wants to open the abortion debate. We were one of the first countries to lead on expanding rights and recognition for the LGBTQ community, and we continue to be a leader on that front. The issue of pot legalization is becoming a mainstream party issue. At the federal level, there's a whole range of moral issues that people say, I want government out of my life. So where do you see the problem is? If people are getting how important liberty is on the one front, where is it that they're missing the importance of liberty on other fronts?
Well, I think the message that they get constantly from media, from the political stage, from public school system, is that government is this committee of virtue, right? That our rights spring from government, and that government is there to give you your rights. And so we're constantly begging government to give us our rights. So yes, we may have gotten some social freedoms from government, but we're missing the point. We had those rights to begin with. Those rights were, we had those rights opposed by government and infringed upon by government. And so now we're getting some scraps back. We shouldn't be resting on our laurels. We need to reconsider the very nature of government and get back to the idea that government is, the government that governs best is the one that governs least and gets out of the way of people.
What does that look like for you? Because there's a whole variety of types of libertarians, and I've even heard of the term libertarian socialist, which seems to me to be a contradiction in terms. But I have read lots of Ayn Rand, and of course Ayn Rand wouldn't call herself a libertarian. She called herself an objectivist, but she felt that there was a role for government in having a military, in having a court and justice system, and in having a single monopoly police force. What would be your view about what the limited role of the federal government should be?
Right. Well, I mean, our party comprises, kind of an umbrella of people that all share one thing in common. We want to see less government. We understand that government ought to be minimized and small. Some of us disagree about how small it should be. And in the past, if you would have read our platform, you might have gotten the impression that were we to achieve power, we'd go into the halls of Parliament and kind of fire everyone and rip up all the rules and maybe blow up Parliament on the way out or something like that. But of course, that's scary, and rightfully so. Our party is concerned about grinding the ball down the field 1 yard at a time. Can we, repeal taxation down to, say, a 15% flat tax, make it, a 4-click tax return instead of having to go through this whole bureaucratic nightmare of filing returns and wondering if you're going to get audited and whatnot. And so that is my primary goal. I don't think there's any end zone called Libertopia, any kind of place that we're trying to get to. To me, liberty and freedom is a process that you need to constantly be pushing for and advocating for. And we're never going to achieve anything called a utopia, but that force needs to be put out there on the political stage, and that's what we're trying to do.
The question is, does it make sense to push the ideas from a political party perspective? Or would you have more success transforming into a movement or an advocacy group or a think tank? There are some think tanks that do have a libertarian stream to them, but I wonder if you would be more effective in trying to create an environment where the ideas make sense, they're good ideas, and they can be adopted by any political party. That seems to me to be what has happened with the social welfare state. It doesn't matter whether you're a conservative, a liberal, or an NDP. You have bought into the basic premises of social democracy, and that government should be involved in virtually every area of our life. How much movement is there in trying to get these ideas more broadly adopted outside of the political realm?
Well, it is a huge problem. I mean, part of the problem is that everyone who has some principles in the matter steers clear of politics. I mean, I was one of these people until a couple of years ago. Well, actually, until a year and a half ago, I thought that getting involved in political action was actually going to be antithetical, that I was going to be somehow implicitly supporting bigger government just by virtue of stepping on that stage. I've since changed my mind, and I think that there was a huge opportunity cost in terms of taking my liberty activism offline in terms of blogging and videos and podcasting. And so I think that liberty-minded people ought to stand on the stage. There's a ready-made audience looking at the stage, wanting to hear big ideas. And if you don't stand on that stage and say big ideas, people aren't likely to hear them. And so, the thing I think that separates us from the other parties is that we're less concerned about winning a popularity contest and more concerned about changing culture. And so we don't have to reflect back to people what they already believe. We don't have to foment fear and hold ourselves up as the answer to that fear. We can stand on the stage, and even if our knees knock a little bit and our voice shakes a little bit, we can kind of say things that are unpopular and speak truth to people. And I think they want to hear that, and I think they're ready for that.
Let's talk about what was the motivator for you a year and a half ago to leap out of the career you had before and into politics.
Well, yeah, I mean, as you know, I have been a firefighter paramedic for years, and I see this as kind of an extension of that. I fought this kind of mindlessly destructive force to protect my community called fire and disease, and now, I'm kind of turning my hose towards government and trying to spray it down a little bit, I guess.
Yeah.
But people approach me because I did some filmmaking on the side, and I worked with Neil Young and Daryl Hannah, and I wrote this article exposing their hypocrisy that went viral. And some people that were Libertarian Party supporters noticed that and thought I'd be a good advocate, that I could speak the message and do it in an articulate way, and I could present it in a way that the public could hear it. So they started trying to wear me down and convince me to run for politics. And then I just, when I made the commitment to run, my member of parliament at the time was Brian Jean, and he resigned 2 days after I made the commitment, and of course I got sprung onto the political stage having zero experience, and the thing that got me all the, I guess, attention and popularity was this meme that we put out that said, I want gay married couples to be able to protect their marijuana plants with guns. And that went around the world, and Fox News had me on, CNN had me on, This Hour's 22 Minutes made fun of me. Pretty soon I found myself leading a party and running for Prime Minister of Canada when, months before that I had said politics is essentially the devil.
Say it one more time, just so people remember it.
I want gay married couples to be able to protect their marijuana plants with guns.
I like it. Now, you said that Brian Jean was your MP at the time. You are now a Calgarian. If I go to www.votemoen.ca, will I be able to find out what riding you've chosen to run in?
No, actually, we haven't announced that yet. Well, I'll tell you what, Daniel. I'll give you the scoop right now. I'll tell you what riding I'm going to run in.
Tell me.
I'm running in Calgary Signal Hill. And the reason I chose that riding is because there's a fellow there who's the nominee for the Conservative Party, Ron Leipert.
Yep.
Ron Leipert was the Alberta Health Minister back in 2009, and I spoke out against him as he tried to, as he did successfully centralize control of my beloved profession, EMS, under the control of Alberta Health Services.
And that's not gone well.
That's not gone well. I predicted this back in 2000. These centralized programs never go well. He stripped from my fellow paramedics and I our ability to serve our communities and be the kinds of practitioners we wanted to be from our hands and centralized it in this giant bureaucracy. And now we have an epidemic of code red situations across the province where ambulances aren't available to respond. So Ron Leipert is seems to be a very left-leaning Tory, and I think that he's representative of the fact that, the cheese seems to have slid off the cracker of conservatism in this country. No, conservatism doesn't mean small government anymore. It means we want the government to intervene in specific ways. And Ron Leipert is a symptom of that disease, and I need to confront him on that battleground and take him down.
Well, I have to say that sounds like another fight of the century. Thanks so much for joining me to talk about your platform. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's Tim Moen. He's going to be a candidate for the Libertarian Party in Calgary Signal Hill, and he's also the Libertarian Party leader. If you want to check him out, you can. www.votemoen.ca. Please stay with me. We have one more topic to cover. I will be back after this news break. Stay with me on News Talk 770.